Hi, I'm Justin West.
And I'm Lisa West, and this is our son Andrew. And Andrew has KCNT1 epilepsy.
Andrew was born down the street at Hoag Hospital in Newport Beach on April 7th, 2017. He's our third child. And I remember Andrew coming out of Lisa's belly and then walking him over the table, and he was pink and he was loud and he had a great scream and he just looked so vivacious and healthy. Everything was going great. He was hitting his little early milestones and he was having his little pediatrician visits. Then everything kind of just slowly started to change. So Lisa noticed he had this little flickering of his foot, and they said, he had probably had a seizure, but the initial workup was negative. They gave us contact information for an epilepsy specialist. He kept having these seizures between that discharge and that visit, and then over the next few months, his seizures went from a few very subtle flicks of the foot a day to 30, and then 40, and then 50, and then sometimes over 50 seizures in a 24-hour period. It was basically one trip after another to the hospital. So I think the longest stretch we had was 42 days at Chalk. They started him on multiple anti-seizure medications, none of which worked. They finally sent at some point a gene panel test, and that panel test showed this very rare form of genetic epilepsy. It's this very challenging diagnosis. We started researching it, and it was really clear there was no treatments for it. And when you start reading the papers that have been written about it, the first sentence of almost every one of those papers says something along the lines of this catastrophic disorder, how your kid will never learn to walk and your kid will never learn to talk.
When he was first diagnosed, the doctors told us that we should take him home and just love him because he probably won't live past toddlerhood. And so I was completely heartbroken, and I just kept thinking how much longer I would have with him, like how, if he was going to pass away. And then I would go into a supermarket where they were playing background music, and I would have to leave because I'd start crying, thinking of songs that I might play at his funeral. So I did try to keep these little journals for each of my kids. It's a 5-year memory book. Carolyn was first, so you can see kind of hers is very much filled out. But I thought I would just bring down Andrew's because after he got sick, I really didn't have time to write much. So you're supposed to write one paragraph for each day for 5 years. November 6, 2017, Carolyn hugged you when you got home from the hospital and said you are part of the family. November 12th, 2017, I cannot stop crying. I just hold you and cry. Please come back to me. I miss you so much. I never have known so much pain. I'm trying to piece my life back together minute by minute. Sometimes you have 30 plus seizures in a day and they seem to come every 8 to 10 minutes. 2018, I miss you, Andrew. I miss your personality. I miss your cooing noises. I miss the way you would smile at me.
So it's about as devastating, I think, of a diagnosis as a child can get. So we really entered this dark phase, I would say, because there was no therapeutics. We were using drugs that were meant for other forms of epilepsy that weren't designed for genetic epilepsy, and it very much appeared that there was no hope. And then maybe when he was about a year old, I got a text one day from a friend of mine from medical school, and he sent me the story of this researcher, Tim Yu, came up with a therapeutic option for this child in about 12 months, which is almost unheard of. It turns out they had a very early interest in KCNT1, and they asked for us to send cells. So they started growing cells for Andrew in labs kind of all over the world. And that was the beginning, I think, for us of this journey down to finding a real possible answer for our son. And I guess we learned that, the sad state of affairs for rare diseases is that a lot of rare disease research and drug discovery is really funded and pushed by the rare parents. Kind of the next steps, we started thinking about forming a foundation. So we realized that we had an important role, I think, to play in helping find a cure for our kid because industry was unlikely to do it. A lot of the work that we're doing has attracted the attention of other researchers, and it's attracted the attention of other pharma companies. So We now have teams around the world that are working on KCNT1, and we developed a clinical trial protocol, and we were on the verge, probably in the next few months, of rolling out that trial, at least initially to a small group of patients in our community, to see if we can buy some time while we wait for these more high-end sort of handcrafted drugs.
He just turned 6, and so he's eating by mouth, he sits up on his own, he's making a lot of progress. And he's a fighter, I really think that he's a fighter. I also remember telling my nanny, Andrew was born 20 years too early, because at the time I thought 20 years from now there would be a genetic cure. And I was wrong, because the genetic cure is very close. And I really, truly believe that there will be a therapy for Andrew in the next 3 to 5 years. We need support. We need donations to help us push this product along so that he can get the therapy. Every minute I think about him. I do. If we can get this therapy for him, it would allow him to have a better life and live his better life.